guys, welcome to 3Gen TV. I've got a couple of guests with me this evening. Would you like to introduce yourselves, guys?
Yeah. I'm Ruth Hall. I'm currently the council youth representative, and I also sit on the marriage and relationships working party.
Okay.
I'm Ashley Cooper. I'm the principal at Cliff College.
Okay, and what have you guys been doing here at 3Generate this weekend?
Well, we've been running a session this afternoon on marriage and relationships. What's it all about? And Ruth and I have been doing that together today because we're both part of a working party set up by the Methodist Conference. The working party is 8 people. To look at whether or how we should redefine the definition of marriage for the Methodist Church, whether we should, and if we should, how we should redefine the definition of marriage for the Methodist Church as a whole, and to look at a statement about marriage and relationships moving forward.
Okay, and what is the current statement the Methodist Church has on marriage?
I can answer that. So, during the session, we explored 3 statements the church currently makes and whether we wanted, as young people, to explore those together. So the church currently states, of course, that marriage is the lifelong union of one man and one woman, and we began to explore some of that. The church currently states that we believe in chastity outside of marriage, so sex is for a marriage context. So we began a conversation around cohabitation and how we felt about that. And so there were some serious questions around what we're doing. And so we also talked around same-sex relationships and how we felt about those.
Okay. And you led 2 sessions on that today. One with, what age were the first session?
So the first group was slightly older, roughly 16 to 23, and then our second group were younger, sort of around the 15-year-old mark.
And was there much of a contrast in views of the older ones and the younger ones, or was that fairly similar?
There was similarity in views across both groups, but the breadth of the views was definitely very wide across both groups.
And what do you think from being in those sessions was the general opinion in those sessions with the young people, or was it very different?
So we did some feedback sheets, and while the breadth was, as I say, very wide, we found that there was a lot more ambiguity on what people thought around cohabitation and about celebrating cohabitation, as opposed to whether they thought same-sex marriage should be included within our marriage statement currently.
Okay. Why do you think this is currently such a large issue within the church? Obviously, young people are really keen to talk about it. That's why it's here at 3Generate. And in some instances in churches, people would much rather avoid the whole conversation.
I don't think we can avoid the conversation. Society has made some different statements in recent years. The government has introduced the Same-Sex Marriage Act. So for the first time, same-sex couples can get married in the UK. And for the first time in our history, the church's definitions of marriage and society's definitions of marriage are now different. So we have to ask questions around that. Do we want to engage in that conversation? And the church has said, yes, we need to have the conversations. And it's really important that as a church, that we're listening to the voices of young people as we start to explore that. And as the Methodist Conference explores how we discuss that and how we move forward with that, the views of young people are really important. So that's what we've been doing today, sharing a whole wide conversation around relationships and friendships as well. What does a friendship mean? What's a good relationship? What's a healthy relationship? But also around the very specific topic of same-sex marriage.
Okay, so your whole session was on marriage and relationships. Relationships don't just include love relationships or that kind of stuff. Obviously, friends and family. Where did the sessions take that conversation?
So we spoke about friendship and also singleness and how they thought singleness was sort of perceived in society and within the church, and also whether it was perceived differently for younger people or older people, and how that was viewed by the youth.
Oh, that's fine, it's good.
Okay. So, having finished both sessions, were the views of the young people fairly in one camp or fairly another, or was it really sporadic across?
It was fascinating that within the young people that we met this afternoon, which I guess would age range from somewhere to 12 to 23, there was a real breadth of opinion. There was not one single voice coming out of that. And actually, I think that's mirrored right across the church, that we aren't all going to agree on these conversations. And the important thing for the church is around how we allow people to journey with their own ideas and thoughts and hold together. Because we aren't as a church about helping everyone to agree on everything, but we are about helping people to live together when we disagree and live together really well. And I think today what we showed in the conversations, that we disagreed really well. There was no animosity in that conversation. There was a real sense of love and wanting to share and understand even when we disagreed. Is that fair, Ruth?
Yeah, and something that I think people were pretty decisive on was that actually the church isn't very good at talking about relationships in general, and there's been a neglect in the past and at present, just in talking about any sort of relationship, from friendship to marriage, across the breadth of the church. The amount of people we asked in our sessions about if they'd spoken about relationships in their church setting that said no was a significant majority.
Do you think that's something that needs to change within the church?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's something that will aid the same-sex marriage topic, but also just marriage and relationships in general within the church.
Okay, and something to finish on. In society at the moment, we have a problem with so many broken families. Obviously, you're doing marriage and relationships. Do you see this trend of broken families and coming to some sort of kind of resolution? Do you know what I mean?
I think one of the key things that came out today was around actually helping young people to understand what is a good relationship and what's a healthy relationship. And so they don't jump into unhealthy relationships that are doomed to failure, actually, because it's not an equal relationship, it's an abusive relationship. And we have a duty of care as a church to help our young people really discern what are good and healthy and right relationships that they, yes, they need to invest in and work in, and to identify those which are not and help them not to be a part of, I think.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for leading that conversation today. It's obviously not an easy one, quite a difficult one at times. It sounds like the kids have really enjoyed being in those sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.